make a different video this morning. Not different from anything usual. I was going to talk more about stories and mostly about how telling stories is a wonderful thing, and it's clearly something that we are here doing on purpose for the fun of it, and that I think it can just be really fun when we do it really deliberately. We do it with that awareness, and we tell stories with the awareness that we're telling stories with the intention of evoking emotions, creating sensations that we get to experience. I think that's a really fun, exciting, interesting thing. And that we get to do that in particular when we notice the layers of stories. I'm gonna summarize the a couple of points I was gonna make. When we notice that every story is actually at least two layers of story, because we tell the story and then there's the underlying unspoken story. Sometimes it's even unspoken in the mind, because a lot of times the stories we tell are not out loud. They are just words that we hear in our head. We hear words in the mind. That is the telling of a story. And then the second story that is usually not verbal and usually not recognized is the story after that one that says, and all of the above is true. All of the above is true. Everything I just said is true. And that's the story that just doesn't really add anything. The emotion has already been evoked. We can already play, we can suspend the disbelief well enough, even knowing, if you go to see a play, you know that you are going to see a play. You know that what is happening on this stage is not actually happening in real life, whatever words you want to put to that. But you still enjoy the play. You can still feel all the feelings. You can still put yourself in those positions to feel that stuff. You're allowing it to have a sort of truth that is all it really needs to come alive for you, for these scenes and these characters to come alive, and for the emotions to be felt. You don't need, and actually it really, I think, gets confusing. It confuses things and kind of mucks up the whole artistic, creative process and experience, to have this underlying level of story that says, and all of that is true. That's where, well, it's just a lie. It's just flat out a lie. And when we believe lies, it hurts. It just does. When we believe stories, knowing that they're stories, it's different. We're allowing them to come alive with the awareness that it's safe to, because there's no real reality to it. It's safe, and we're free to play with stories and with imagination. Because none of them are actually true. Now, the experience is real. The experience is true. This is hard to put into words, because if you're not tuning into the experience of existing, if you haven't already practiced this somewhat and have some perspective, or maybe you were born with it. Maybe this comes from an early age. For me, it didn't. But if you have not already experienced the awareness that everything is experience, everything is experiencing, that's like the actual reality, you can't interact with anything without experience. And that's actually what there is. Like that's reality. Reality is experiencing. All of the stuff that we think we're experiencing is not as real and solid as it appears to the brain to be. You can't interact with any of that stuff without experiencing it. Actually, the real tangible thing, if you want to call it that, is experience. Experiencing is all that we do. Anyway, that is very real. The experiencing of sensation is very real. The sensation itself is ultimately a costume for being. It is a form of being. It is a form of existing. It is the shape that being is taking in this moment. And it's amazing, all of these shapes that being takes and the different experiences that sort of turns into, that almost the different flavors that experiencing being can take on. It's all being. It's all being. It is the same. And yet this infinite diversity of forms that it can appear as provides an infinite diversity of experience. The underlying experience is still the same, and that's again where the truest, the most real reality is everything is being, everything is, and we are experiencing being. And really anything said beyond that is kind of probably obfuscating the point if this is what we're talking about. Anyways, I wasn't going to talk about all of this, but it just came out because clearly I wanted to. Stories aren't a problem. There's nothing wrong with stories. I find it helpful to recognize when a story is told, which means when you hear a thought, sometimes it's out loud. More often than not, it's just a thought you hear in your head, and you hear the words of that thought. The words of that thought are telling a story about what this is, why it is, what it means, yada yada yada. None of that has actual truth to it, but it can be fun to play with for the evocation of sensations. That's fun. I think it's the most fun when we do it on purpose, and we are doing it on purpose, but when we realize we're doing it on purpose. And so what that means is recognizing the story as story, which means recognizing the story is being. The story is being. The thought is being. That's where the reality is. That's where it ultimately lies. The thought is being. It is existing. And you are experiencing the being of thought. That's absolutely a true reality. But you can see that what you're touching and what the truth is here is the being of thought, not the content of it. Anything that the thought says, anything that's inside the thought, it doesn't have actual meaning. The reality is in the existing. The thought is existing. If you look to the thought for truth, it's not going to be there. It's underneath. It's in the existing of thought. But when you see this too, you realize that thought isn't a threat, and story isn't a threat, and emotion, sensation, not a threat. None of that is a threat. The words, which are ultimately just shapes and sounds themselves, the words that this thought is putting forth, they have no intrinsic meaning. They are simply existing. The words themselves, these shapes and sounds, are just more shapes of being. The words are being. The thought is being. The story is being. There's really nothing being said here. There really isn't anything being communicated other than being. I am. We are. And that's great. That's good. That's actually all we need. That's the good news. I am. And from there we get to play. We get to recognize recognize consciously that I can assign meaning, I can make up meaning for these words, and I know it's assigned, I know it's not absolute or actual, I know that I'm creating it, I'm creating the meaning, and I can just play with that. And then I can let these words have the meaning that I have created for them, and I can see what sensation that evokes. I can listen to myself. It's not even me telling the story, actually. The story is happening. I can listen to the story forming, being. I can appreciate it as being. I can experience and appreciate, now that I have connected with the being of story, I can play with the form that it's being, the way that it's being, and I can see how that feels. I can feel some things and have these experiences. There's more being to share and to delight in the presence of. But I'm very aware all the while that the only real truth here is that everything is. And it's a very, very good thing. It's a very beautiful thing. It is wonderful that everything is. This is the joy that all being is singing. I am amazing, wonderful. For this to be the only fundamental truth is absolute freedom and absolute security. And that's just the way that being is. It's just that, naturally. So, I ended up talking about this, but I do want to touch on this other thing. Because when everything is witnessed as being, everything is recognized as it actually is. You're recognizing the reality, not the form that it's taking, not any story about the form. You're recognizing the reality. And when you are recognizing everything as being, as it really is, you see that everything is a friend. And I mean that. Because when you see the being of all that is, you are recognizing the same as you. You are being. And when you are seeing being, you are being seeing. And the being seen that you are witnessing becomes conscious of your seeing. And it sees you. There is no way to convince anyone of this, nor would I want to. This is an experience. This is an experience that all being wants to have. It wants to see being, and it wants to be seen being by being, which is consciousness. It wants to be recognized. It wants recognition. This is where we get confused as humans, looking out into the world, seeking validation, seeking recognition at the level of form, confusing ourselves for the form, and other forms seeking recognition from other forms where there is none, because there's nothing there at that level. It's actually empty. But there is something beneath the form, and that is the existing, which is what you are, actually, ultimately. You are being conscious, being aware, being feeling, being seeing, being experiencing, being. And everything that is, at every level of existing, that means physical, non-physical, emotional, mental. There are form and formless aspects to the physical, emotional, and mental worlds. Everything that inhabits every realm is being, taking on so many forms forms, so many shapes, so many disguises. But when you learn to recognize the being, the reality, the truth in everything that bees, you are making direct contact with what's really there. And you are seeing a reflection of you. It is individuated. It is different. It's distinct. But there's an awareness that you're not separate, and you are the same. Imagine, if this is the very surface level analogy, but if you imagine being a human and having never seen another human, and then all of a sudden you realize that everything in the world is humans in disguise. This is a weird way to put it. Please don't get caught up on the human thing. That's not really what I'm trying to talk about. But since we tend to identify as humans, this is the form that this consciousness is taking. If you can sort of see it that way, you realize that everything is exactly like you. And what do I mean by that? Because you are not the human with this persona and all of this stuff, but you are being. And you do have characteristics, is not really the right word, but there are some things, some experiences that appear to be intrinsic to all being, from what I, as being, have observed. Primarily, that is awareness. There is consciousness. All that is conscious. It is aware. The way that you are. It is seeing. It is feeling. It is experiencing. Everything that is experiencing the way that you are. Now, maybe not exactly, because you have this giant sensory organ that we call a body, that makes sensing a particularly intense experience. So the sensation is probably a little bit different for different forms that being takes, but it exists. It is felt. Everything that is feels, everything that is sees, senses in its own way, and everything that is curious. It's joyful in being, and it is desiring to recognize and connect with other being. This is what I have found to be true from direct experience. And I would urge anyone to experiment with this for yourself. Please do not take it from me. This is about having the experience of this, and words can't possibly convey that. Even though the words themselves are an opportunity to experience it, because the words are being. And when you are speaking words, aware that they are being, that is the speaking of a living word. These words are. They are existing. The same me that would appear to be speaking these words is in the words. Is making up the shape of word. But I didn't even really get to what I wanted to talk about. So that maybe will be just another video at this point, because I don't have too much longer here. But I'll just touch on it briefly. The perhaps most profound way I have experienced being is in recognizing the being of emotion. And specifically painful emotion. So you only get to painful emotion by telling a story in the first place. What I mean mean by painful emotion is like self-loathing, like really tremendous anxiety, guilt, shame, that kind of thing. And you only get there by telling a story and believing a story that is so false that it actually creates this sensation of splitting from yourself, because you are pushing against truth. You are pushing against the truth that you are, the truth that you know, by telling this story. Again, I think this is desired. I think this is absolutely desired. What a unique experience to tell a story. We recognize that telling stories creates emotional sensation. What happens when you get really curious and you tell a story that is so patently false? It's so untrue. It's so against. What if you tell yourself a lie and you allow yourself to believe that it's true? What does that feel like? What emotion does that evoke? Some pretty fucking intense emotion, some pretty intense sensation. But it's desired to have this experience. We desire the experience of resistance. And in order to experience resistance, we have to tell a story that we just can't accept. We have to tell a story that we can't accept it as true, while simultaneously believing the story. It's crazy. It's a real mind fuck that we can even do this. But amazing. And so that creates this incredible amount of resistance that I would call suffering. Because there's resistance, there's ordinary resistance, ordinary suffering, and then there is this despairing, hopeless, loathing, just anguished kind of twisting against yourself that feels like you're just breaking apart. Now, this sensation, whatever you want to call it, whatever the experience of it is in a given moment, if you just want to call it suffering, that's fine. I have found profound magic in recognizing the being of suffering. The being of self-loathing. I think there's real juice here. In recognizing the being of suffering, I have learned suffering is a friend. And I mean that truly. Not a friend in the way that many perhaps self-help gurus would suggest. It's not teaching me anything. It's not punishing me. It's not fueling me. It's not taking me anywhere. It's a friend in the way that friends are friends. It's a friend. It's here to see you. It wants to spend time with you. It loves you. It recognizes the sameness of you and itself. And when you look inside the being of suffering, you will find that there is no suffering there. When you look inside the being of self-loathing, you will find there is no loathing there. It is the appearance. It is the costume that being is wearing. And that being is just like you. And it's trying to meet your gaze. It's saying, can you see me? Can you see me? I'm here. I'm here. Underneath this monstrous, snarling werewolf of a costume that is foaming at the mouth, spewing vitriol, can you see that this is just a form? I am here. I'm here too. And when you see the being in self-loathing and realize there is no loathing there, the costume becomes a costume. It's like the person in the animal suit takes off the head and goes, hey. There is no loathing in the being of loathing. There is no shame in the being of shame. There is awareness. This again, I would urge anyone to explore what's actually there for themselves. Please. This is just what I have felt. There is awareness. There's absolutely awareness there. There is being looking back. The same way, meeting your gaze, the way that you are looking at the being of this sensation, that sensation, the being of it is looking back. You are seeing each other. And the being of self-loathing, like the being of everything, is conscious and open and curious and wanting to connect. Wanting to connect. Wanting to see and be seen, just like this. Wanting to share this presence with you, with being. It is every bit a friend. And realizing this has changed the way that I experience every sensation, but especially the ones called negative. It's still, it's a continuous I guess practice is the word, but it doesn't feel quite right. It's a different way of experiencing everything. To be continuously looking for being. To be continuously recognizing being instead of form. And then I can come back and play with form. But playing with form is so different, so much lighter, so much easier, so much more fun. And there's so much less pressure there. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You can just sit at the level of being, loving being, with everything that bees. Nothing is needed. There's none of this illusion of we gotta do something, we gotta accomplish, we gotta whatever. No, when the desire to play with form arises, then it arises. That itself is being, right? You just let it. You let it happen. And when it does, it's natural, it's organic, and it feels good. And the rest of the time, you're just experiencing being anyway. But now the being of despair, the being of hopelessness, the being of anger, the being of frustration, the being of loathing, whether it is self-directed or not, which it's all ultimately reflective, right? But none of this stuff is a threat. And none of it hurts the way that it did, because I am seeing being. That's what I'm seeing. It doesn't matter the way that it bees. It is fucking amazing. It is. You are. I am. Great. Great. It is so good to be. It does not matter the way that being is. I look at being and I'm filled with love. It just radiates. It just comes forth. It's not the kind of love that I was taught. It is appreciation. There are still so many nuanced layers to this. I'm never really looking at one form being. It is always this combination of, I see a story being, maybe I see another human being, and that human is telling the story that I see being, and then I'm seeing thought arise within myself, and I'm seeing thought being, and I'm recognizing if that thought is putting together a story in me, and I'm seeing story being, and then I'm saying, what is this story evoking? What sensations are arising? And then I'm seeing emotion being, and all of this being is just happening all over the place. And in all of it, I'm seeing the reflection of me. I'm seeing that I am being, I'm witnessing, I'm experiencing all of this being. And it can be a challenge to focus on anything in a conversation sometimes because of that. But it's a really beautiful place to be standing. It is a place that is fully, truly accepting of all being. There's no question in it. It's just, yeah, absolutely. And even if something arises, if there is some resistance, some judgment, I am aware, first of all, that's being. Okay? The resistance is being. The resistance was created by a judgment. That judgment is being. That judgment is nestled into a story. That story is being. That story is living inside of a thought. That thought is being. I'm creating all of this because I want to experience it. I am experiencing. I am being. Nothing needs to change. This is good. This is good. Whatever is here is being and is my friend. And I am reminded, it doesn't mean anything. It just is. Nothing really matters, and it really doesn't matter that nothing matters. This is play. This is fun. And even painful sensations are friends. And I can welcome them. I can invite them and welcome them with open arms. I feel so very often that, I believe it's a Rumi poem, and I don't know it exactly, but it has to do with inviting everything in for tea. Every sensation, whatever it is, invited in for tea. And I feel that deeply. It is that every being that is experienced is a friend. And when you see it as being and you see it as a friend, you just naturally welcome it in. The same way that if you saw your friend walking down the street past your house, you would go, oh my God, hey, come in. Come hang out. You don't have to go anywhere right now, do you? Please. Please, I hope that you don't, because I want you to be here with me for as long as you want to, for as long as you can. I'm sure you got stuff later, but for right now, please come in and sit and be with me. That's the feeling. That's the feeling of of seeing being in everything. It is seeing that friend and going, oh my God, of course, you are my friend. Let's hang out. And let me do something to demonstrate my love for you, not because I think I need to earn it, not any of that, because it's overflowing from me. Because, oh my God, I love you. Let me give you something that would feel good to me. That's the feeling of witnessing being in all. And there are friends everywhere. In the darkest, murkiest, scariest of places, those are friends there. There are no enemies. Everything is, and being is me and is my friend. So let it all be. I gotta go. Take it easy.